everyone, welcome back to our exciting episode of Attack Productions. Today, Bankrupt joined once again by Jimmy and Jake.
Not really.
What's going on, y'all?
In today's matchup is, well, it's Jake taking on Steve. We got Trunks-Geta taking on Supreme Kai. Steve isn't here for today's video, so we got Jimmy, who has way more experience with Supreme Kai than I do. So yeah, there's buttons, links, check them out. Let's get into it, guys. This was one of the decks, this was the deck that Steve took to Tennessee with when you and Chase went, right, Jimmy?
Yes. Yeah. He decided to take Supreme Kai. It's a deck that he's got a lot of practice in with. And he ended up spending a lot of money on it too. I wish he was here to tell us about his shopping spree in Tennessee.
I know he got the Vegetas, right? I think I saw them in his deck.
Yeah. It was on the way there. I was like, I hope they have a merch table. I might pick up some of those Vegetas if I get a chance. And he walks over, he shows me one. He's like, yeah, I just bought it. I bought the last one. I was like, damn, Steve, I was gonna buy that. And then next round, he walks up. He's like, yeah, I got another one. I was like, bro, what the hell? Come on now. Oh, what a mill too! Holy shit.
I know that's a turn one mill.
At first, I was like, hooray, and then kind of realized that.
You're reminded that it plays from the warp.
Yeah, you can play it from the warp.
So yeah, that's a hell of a mill. Holy shit!
And then he milled the super combo afterwards, which I guess kind of balanced itself out, right?
Yeah,
I mean, depending if he plays Gogeta cards in the deck, so
that's fair.
This first turn was so crazy. I negated the leader swing because I'm like, what else can he really do? And then immediately regretted it with the 15 crit and then the Trunks behind it.
Mm-hmm.
And he's going to go ahead and awaken. Got plenty of cards in his warp to do so.
Did he? So he went in and also activated Supreme Kai's effect to keep the cards on board as well. Just okay, yeah, because he created the life for it. So speaking of, I guess, taking tournaments, this is the deck that Jake, you kind of been on since TCG
came out.
I mean, yeah, since
it
came out. But this is the deck you kind of like got 10th place at TCG Con. You've stuck with this deck longer. I think anyone else at a shop has. And I would say you're probably the most experienced with this deck when it comes to at least people we generally know.
Yeah, I'd say this is the deck I'm most known for as far as the game goes.
And I know your experience with certain aggro decks, I'm not going to say all aggro decks, is really hard for you. Especially those first couple turns. Like, you have to establish. So after this kind of like turn one explosive energy, what was the thought process?
Well, lucky for me, I managed to get into this point of the game with 6 life still. So, I'm not really sure why that Vegeta died. Oh, I attacked it. Okay. Yeah, so I'm still at this point of the game with 6 life. I'm able to get my rivalry online, which is a new tech I'm trying to go ahead and take myself down to 5. With all the crit going on in the format right now, I'd rather just get that card in my hand and then be able to activate the Frieza's Army reinforcement. And here I go ahead and just put double strike on the rivalry to try and go ahead and remove this unison. Just try and kind of undo everything he's done in the previous turn. I've found that like the best way to beat aggro decks with Trunks Vegeta is to 1, build a nice hand size, which I'm doing here by evolving, and 2, try and remove as much as you possibly can on their side of the field each turn to make them have to reinvest. A problem this deck can run into in any matchup is like being able to kill the opponent. And if you aren't forcing your opponent to redeploy and they just have a ton of cards in hand, it becomes really difficult to actually turn around and kill them when the time comes.
Yeah, that the play against Kai, I usually, people that are struggling with the deck, I usually say don't really focus on the unison because the unison recursion is so easy in the deck. You just have to tap 1 and play it from your warp. And most of the time you kind of want to do with the additional discards and whatever. But in a situation like this, I think that's actually huge because it locks him out of being able to go into his Gohan plays from the warp when he has his Trunks in. If he had a promo Vegeta that he could combo off or get into the drop somehow and then play in. He's not going to have the energy for it to do everything that you can do. So you really shut down like a significant portion of his game plan just by popping the Unison there so early on. Plus, I think Trunks Vegeta does have a decent matchup against Overwhelm decks just because everything is counter window 1, counter window 2. And since, unless he wants to activate his leader effect, his Toki Toki City effect, those cards are going to go away. And with yellow being able to tap them down, making them non-threats, it basically just, he has to burn one card a turn to get past your Trunks.
Yeah, which I think is really strong.
Yeah, and a lot of decks can just like throw out a barrier card or something they don't care to get tapped down, but where every single card in an Overwhelm deck is a bomb and a strong power play, you're pretty much guaranteed to shut down a power play
and
on the first play.
And this turn, Steve showed really good heads-up knowledge of that by playing his Unison first and proccing the Trunks effect on something he's not going to be attacking with anyway. A lot of people don't realize that that effect triggers on Unisons as well, and Steve was wise enough to go ahead and deploy that Unison and then play these big bodies afterward.
But this shows the resilience of Kai, even though he started his turn 2 on a back foot after having such an explosive turn 1. And I say back foot in terms of what Kai can normally do. Still was able to board a dual attacker and a 30k body that will get to recover something, which is, I mean, any deck would be happy to do that. And this was like a bad turn for Kai. I feel like on your side, Jake, you'd be in a much worse position if he was able to play his turn fully instead of having to play a little bit of recovery with the Unison and tap down his energy.
Yeah, I mean, most importantly, I'm going into this turn with 4 life, when I think normally in this matchup, if Kai gets to do everything it wants to, I would be at 3 right here.
Mm.
And it lets me make a couple more investments in aggression rather than just sitting back and trying to defend myself.
Mm. Going for the big boy play early.
Yeah, I was thinking the exact same thing actually.
Yeah, so he's got so much on the board right now, and I can't really remove multiple battle cards without this effect, given what's in my hand right now. And plus, I'm going to draw a card and put him under triple crit pressure, which I don't think he would want to take, even though he has the more aggressive deck here, because I can just turn around and like play a Nimbus or something and floodgate him on the next turn. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go ahead and combo up to 40 and make him give up pretty much his whole hand here in order to not take the 4, or not take the 3, excuse me.
Yeah, because he went down to 1 card after that.
Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty sure I just pass here. Yeah, I got everything I wanted out of that.
I will say, the other card in his hand, if you would have tried to go into, I think, a Vegeta or a Trunks, he did have a counterplay for that from the looks of it. Super Kamehameha hits 3 or less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Like, while he is at 1 card in hand, that being a Super Kamehameha, this being black, he still has options to play from his warp, mainly, and I'm hoping
he's about to do it now. Yeah,
Evil Saiyan, yeah. Evil Saiyan is a turn in itself. The card does way too damn much. So even if that's your only play that you're going to make that entire turn, that is still a huge play.
I don't think he could grab that card. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, it has to be 7 or less.
So he ends up making a different choice, which I'm like, that's okay.
Which, I mean, because of that, I guess, accident, you're now aware you do have a negate in your life somewhere.
Yeah, I was the one that benefited from that the most, I think. Like, I could have forced him to play that little one drop if this was like a bigger tournament, but I was fine. He hadn't actually handed my life back to me, I don't think, so I was okay with it.
And if correct, he cannot grab it procs on the token, but he cannot grab the token.
It specifies when your opponent plays a battle card with an energy cost of 7 or less.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this doesn't even proc it because the token doesn't have an energy cost.
Yeah. Yeah, a card has to have a specified. It has to have a cost to proc the effect, which I don't want Black to get back into this format because I want to stop answering questions about Evil Satan.
For the longest time,
it's too late now, man. It's been topping here lately.
For a while, that card was a whole mess of questions.
Yeah, if you're not familiar with how the card works, just go annoy your own judge about it and stop messaging me, please.
I think we call you in this game about it.
Yes, you do actually. I don't remember when, but I remember you.
I think it's this turn. I think it's right now.
Probably.
Because you get to play a 1-drop, which would proc it, but it has barrier, which means it can't be chosen, or it will proc it, but it won't go off.
Well, the effect doesn't say choose, so he can just snag this.
Yeah, it doesn't say choose. That's right.
Yeah, it does not choose. I had a match the same night I was playing God Trunks, where I took a player's 1-drop Frieza in Frieza swap. And he was unfamiliar about the being able to snag barrier cards with it. So that was a little unfortunate for that.
Now, Jake will still get the auto on this one because he is the turn player, though.
In this case, yes.
Yeah. Which I don't
think I resolved it.
I'm gonna say yeah, because you either would get a draw or you would have played Vegeta.
Yeah, I don't think I resolved it. I just hard cast another one. Super command.
E is keeping that. Yeah. I mean, I guess it's a nicer target than Android 13, right, Jake?
Yeah. That way I don't have to discard 2. Here I'm finally able to get into my 3-drop after playing through all of his effects.
Yeah. I will say, and this could just be, not playing against this matchup enough to know that, but Super Kamehameha is something he should have held on to for
the 3-drop.
Yeah. Now, this Gohan rare that he just comboed off is a very nice card, or a sneaky card in the late game, especially when it's put into the warp, because it can be used as a negate, which is pretty awesome.
I feel like outside of really just the blue Gohan rare, blue and green Gohan rare, a lot of them have not seen like a ton of play.
No.
So these cards, even though they're really popular cards and they're really strong, people tend to just forget about them. I find myself personally running into the red one way too much, just walking into it and dying to it. And same thing with this black one, like going for a big swing, and since it triggers in the auto step, your opponent saying no negate, and then you just get blindsided by like, hey, also I'm actually negating the attack, but in the auto step. Then it's like, oh shit.
Which is such makes that thing so much more sneakier because, like you said, because I think you had a match a couple weeks ago, where you said no negate, and your opponent's like, all right, cool, and goes to combo. You go, hang on, autos are still pending because it's a hidden auto. Like it's not something they have hidden, but it goes into a pending. So your opponent has to be like constantly aware. Like, oh yeah, that hits a warp. I need to remember that card, and always ask any autos before you go into another step.
And it is huge in the yellow matchup. When they're threatening a cooler counter, it's not in green text, so
Yep.
that gets around that, and they have no option to deal with that card. Which it's huge in that matchup because if they swing out with like a big tower or whatever and threaten that, and then it's just okay, well I'm just gonna take 1 damage, homie. Like, don't worry about it. Um, I so rarely see this card actually hit the board.
The Goku.
Yeah, I've only ever really seen it played as like a measureless strength where you just discard search top 5.
Yeah, he did that effect once and ended up being another one being the only one he could find.
I mean, shit, being able to thin your deck out like that is huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, that card, Reflexive Strike, is an amazing card for Kaya time. Not so much the counter. The counter is nice and can come up, but just being able to discard that card for the top 5 search is huge. And especially with the strength of the cards that you can add off of that is it gets exponential every single set. They're printing more good Black Goku and Vegetas, whether they're promos or actually in the set themselves.
So this Mass Saiyan, because he overwhelmed, was able to play it very cheaply, and he did get rid of your blocker, which creates a fun interaction because it would have gone away naturally, but now at the end of your turn, it gets to be played, and because it wasn't. Does it go away because of the counterplay aspect of it, or just because
it's in the auto? So since it gets played with its skills negated the second time, it
stays.
It stays, yeah.
Yeah, and I could be wrong, but even if it didn't negate, I think the card says when this card's played from hand. I could be wrong about that, but I think it does have that text as well. So even if it didn't negate, it would come back and still stick around. More fun rulings with black cards. This and the Supreme Kaya Time negate always gets questions. But I was super down on that Mass Saiyan when the Anti-Box was cards revealed, but after playing the card and getting some time to let it sink in, that card's really strong.
It put in some work on that turn.
20k crit and warp 2 cards for a little bit for 1 energy is pretty good. I don't know what was wrong with me when I read that card the first time, but when I read it the first time, I was like, this card's dog ass. So like it might get played in like 1 deck.
So we're in a situation where I think, Jake, your coming to realization is that you have to end the game this turn, or he has it. And I think I know I'm staying there. I'm not sure if anyone else is staying there. Possibly Jimmy is, but you make the comment that you have 2 plays here.
Yeah. So I have 2 lines of play. I could either pay 1 and go into another rivalry, pick the Vegeta that's in rest mode, pick up a life, and go for a 20k double strike and try and end the game. Or I can play this Vegeta out of the Z deck. And I ended up casting this mostly because I had never cast it before, right?
Yeah.
And I just kind of wanted to see how it ended up. So it's going to come in and KO this rest mode Mass Saiyan, and then it'll gain crit, and it has dual attack, and then it'll gain crit.
Because the card you pop was in rest mode.
Mm-hmm.
And it does get past barrier.
It does.
Now, granted, the Mass Saiyan didn't have barrier, but here's those moments where you have to remember this sneaky card right here. He does take a life, but it's not a crit, so he kind of has a little extra level of protection there because of it.
Mm-hmm.
But he still has 2 point energy. 2 cards, I think, is in his hands now.
Yeah.
Question is, does he have another negate?
Yeah, if he hardcasts a blocker negate here, I'm good, but there are a few cards he could play here that just kind of end my turn, so.
And it seems like he did not have any negate, and you kind of just go all out on the combo, at least as far as you can go.
Yeah. Comboed everything I had that was comboable.
So, with that being said, thank you for tuning in. Keep in mind, there's buttons down below, links in the description. Check them out. And thanks for tuning in. Bye.